You're good to go.
Perfect. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do the land acknowledgement that I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq. Number 3, record of attendance. I believe Mayor Mood is on another meeting for a sec, but will be joining us as soon as that's over. So I'm not sure if we need to excuse her, but she will be here before the meeting ends. Any declarations of conflicts of interest? Can bring that up at the time. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments that are there for the rescinding of the COVID vaccination policy and the addition of the grants to organizations? Councillor Lesser, seconded by Councillor Bell. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. So we are lucky enough to have the accessibility action plan presented to us today. I've been lucky enough to chime in on a few meetings and see the hard work that's been done there. So I'm looking forward to this. So I'll hand the floor over to Stephen. Welcome, Stephen, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm just going to bring up my slide presentation here. It's been an honor to have the privilege to work with this group. You'll forgive me of my technological skills here. Okay, how do I share something on the screen? I guess this is my first question. Or do you have that in front of you?
So, Stephen, on your screen, up near the button, the red button that says leave, right beside it, there's a box with an upward arrow. You see that?
Yep, I do.
Okay. If you press that, that'll allow you to share your screen.
Perfect. Okay, can you all see the accessibility action plan?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We see your documents, where you double clicked it.
Yeah, I did. I have it open here. You don't see that.
Oh.
Okay, I'll just change that. Now you should have that in front of you. Okay. As I said, over the past year, the Accessibility Action Plan has been working hard. I'll give you just a little bit of background. In 2017, Nova Scotia passed a law that all public sector bodies will become accessible by 2030. To do this, all the towns and municipalities are required to develop a plan that makes their built environments, services, and programs as barrier-free as possible. So the question would be asked, why? Nova Scotia has one of the highest disability rates among all the provinces. The average is around 23%. Nova Scotia identifies as almost 30% of the people having accessibility issues. In Nova Scotia, that's 285,000 people. In our hometown, that's 2,000 people, and that's not counting tourists, people from the municipalities that will come and take part in our services. Just the people at our own little town, that's 2,000 people that experience accessibility barriers when using the town's various buildings, spaces, services, and programs. The Town of Yarmouth Accessibility Committee. As chair, it's been a privilege to work with this group on a cause that has been very dear to my heart. Myself and members of the committee have disabilities. I have a disability, identify as having 2 disabilities. There are at least 3 other folks on our committee that identify as having disabilities. A big thank you needs to go to Sherry, Jane, Tanya, Lori, Tracy, Peter, Natalie, Mike, Derek, Gil, and Francois for all their hard work in making what you're about to see today happen. I'm sure by now you've all received the accessibility plan as well as input from the community. Those are 2 great documents. I encourage you, please read them. A thank you especially to all those people that took the time to talk to us. It's because of the people that talk to us that we are here today talking about what improvements we need to make. Barriers, what are they? Where are they? First of all, let's look at the definition of a barrier. What is a barrier? A barrier is something that makes it hard for some people to participate. Nova Scotia Accessibility Act defines a barrier as anything that hinders or challenges the full effective participation in society of persons with disabilities. This can include communication barrier, an attitude, a technology barrier, a policy, or a practice. It should also be noted that the Nova Scotia Human Rights makes it a law that every reasonable effort must be taken to give a person with disability access to service, building, program, or employment. Our commitment. The town of Yarmouth, along with the accessibility committee that you formed, is committed to removing barriers where they are found in its service, communication, built environment, transportation, and employment. What we heard. Over the last year, we spoke with many people. My goal as chair was to make sure that we heard from a diversified group of people and covered a broad range of accessibility issues. I think we did that. We heard from people with mobility issues, vision loss, hearing, autism, even more. What we heard that the newest buildings can have issues. The town has no Braille service. Many hearing impaired people have issues accessing town meetings. Waterfront development is lacking in persons with mobility issues. Accessible parking on Main Street is lacking. Snow removal is an issue. Cracks in brickwork can cause problems with those that have mobility issues. Can we make the town's programs more sensory friendly? The town needs to develop a policy that sees the adaptation of accessibility lens, impact analysis report, or statement of any development or redevelopment is current built structure, programs, or services to ensure accessibility town and future. The future of accessibility, the goal of the town of Yarmouth, along with the province of Nova Scotia, is to be more accessible by 2030, to develop a plan for future developments to meet acquired accessibility requirements. Today, the committee submits an action plan on how to build an accessible Yarmouth. To better achieve the goal, the committee also recommends promoting a National Accessibility Day, the group to provide future consultations on new buildings, towns, policy development, programs, transportation needs, or employment programs. The Town of Yarmouth Accessibility Committee stands ready to provide training, education, consultation to the Town of Yarmouth, its business or groups that would like to develop a knowledge of accessibility issues. And that's the end of my slide presentation. I am open naturally to any questions or concerns that anybody might have. Okay, I
So-
lost everybody's volume here.
Yeah. Did we lose our chairman?
Okay.
I believe we may have.
Okay. Would somebody like to chair the meeting till he returns?
I'll do it.
I'd suggest we.
All right, so where are we at here? Does anyone have any questions? Oh, there's Pam. There you
we
go.
have
You
Pam.
get to take over.
And she's got no voice.
You're muted, Your Worship.
Sorry about that. I have 10 minutes. We're having a break. The Prime Minister just spoke. Okay, so you're good?
So, well, here's where we are. Stephen just did the presentation, delivered the presentation on the Accessibility Action Plan and the work of the committee, and he's just opened the floor to questions. And we had temporarily lost Steve as well as you, and you weren't here, so we were trying to figure out how to get it on. So
Okay.
you're both here now.
Okay, good.
Okay, have Derek here.
Ironic, actually, that during this meeting that we would have people not be able to be accessible. We lost connection with people.
Am I still here now?
You're still there, Stephen. Yep.
Okay.
So Steve, Deputy Mayor, are you still chairing the meeting? Okay. So
Yep.
I guess it's open to questions. I think Gil had a question.
Go ahead, Councilor Dares.
Not so much a question, thank you, Your Worship. But having been involved with the Accessibility Committee now since its inception, I just want to commend the volunteers that have committed their time to that purpose. I think Councillor Lester will agree with me that it's been a very focused and a very dedicated group, and we owe them a debt of gratitude.
Thank you, Gil.
I'd like to second that. Like I said, I've chimed into a few meetings just to watch, and it's always very focused, good open conversation, and congrats to you for the good work that's being done there.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of say the same thing, Stephen. I don't know you, I've never met you, but a big thank you to you and to the whole team, but particularly to those who identify with persons with disabilities, because it's really through your lens that we can make a difference for the town, right? And so it's really important to have that focus and help us move forward. I mean, I think it really needed that guidance and appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we're good on that one. So thank you once again for your presentation, and look forward to the hard work you guys continue to do in that committee.
Presentation was a lot of hard work, and I look forward to, I guess basically this is sort of the halfway point, and now we go into the other half of making it possible. And I look forward to see how that's going to come about.
Perfect. So if that's it, we can move on to the next one. Yes.
CAO
Yeah.
has its hand up.
Just got a question.
So Mr. Chair, we have and again, I want to say thank you to Steve and myself and to your committee for the work. I've reviewed the various drafts and monitored the work through Natalie, and it's been impressive, frankly, to see what's been produced in the time that you've been together. So thank you very much for that. Your Worship, we have a requirement on us as a town to have this complete and have the plan ratified under law. So you have a copy of the plan. If you've had a chance to review it, normally we don't make motions on the day of committee of presentations, but this presentation comes from one of our own committees, and I would submit that it's different in that they're recommending a policy to us. So it would be appropriate to have a recommendation to council to adopt the accessibility plan if you're ready for that recommendation.
Anyone like to make that motion? Councilor Dares, seconded by Councilor Lesser. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, all in favor do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thanks once again.
Great, so that'll be on the council agenda for March, and if approved there, Stephen, your plan is adopted.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Great, how to leave here.
7B, I believe we have another presentation. Facade Society.
Yeah, that's me, Steve.
Perfect. Go right ahead. Is this Mr. Gorman?
It is.
Welcome, my friend. Good to hear
Thanks,
from
pal.
you.
Great to be here. I appreciate all your time today.
So, go ahead.
Can
You
you
have the floor.
see can you see my presentation here on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm presenting on behalf of the Yarmouth Facade and Mural Society, and this is sort of an outlook into this year and a review of last year, what we've accomplished and where we're sort of headed. In 2021, in terms of facade projects, we had the South Fresh Mart. They did the exterior overhaul. Printer Works, which is at 513 Water Street, they redid the siding, their garage door, lighting, and windows. Curl Up and Die, which is on 5 Parade, sort of kitty corner to the RVC, they did a full exterior. And then Ryan's Electrical Building on Water Street participated in the murals program with a piece from Danielle Mahood, as well as a student-directed mural through the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, partnership with them, an Art Smart program, and that's, of course, on Brown Street. So there's just some images here of before and after. This is the Curl Up and Die building before and after, of course. I do not have a before photo of Printer Works, but it used to have green siding, and the sort of upper area around here was smashed up a bit. And anyway, so it's a great transformation. We have some images here of the murals that were done. This is the one on Water Street, of course. This is the one on Brown Street. So far for 2022, we have a few confirmed projects, and there's others that we're sort of working towards actively at the moment. 500 Main Street, which I'll show an image of in a moment for those who are not familiar. They've applied and have been approved for a full exterior overhaul. There's an ongoing discussion with Iceworks, which I can't say a whole lot about his plans, but we know that there is an application in currently for a mural on the north side. He does have potential plans for the south side as well. The same individuals own the Greco Pizza building, and there's discussions surrounding that as well. This is 500 Main. This is what it looks like now on the left, of course, and on the right, that's a draftsperson rendering of how it's going to look when they're finished. We have a lot of artists who have showed interest in participating this year. We do not have formal applications in from businesses yet, but I anticipate receiving several of those in March. I'll be doing some outreach with other members of the committee. And so this is a listing of some artists. Troy Lovegates, who is sort of internationally known, Danielle Mahood, who's local, Kristen De Palma, who's in Halifax. And then there's a fella who goes by Talking Wall Designs, and that's with Kristen De Palma. They want to do one together. There's also a group out of Halifax called Trackside. There's a project that's sort of under the radar for now, but it's in discussions with Acadia First Nations involving a very renowned First Nations artist for a big public piece. And then an artist, folk artist out of Weymouth named Heike Wagner, you may or may not be familiar with, but she's expressed some interest as well. So I'm going to just go into a few conceptual drawings and some images of these artists' work. This is a piece by Troy. You know, he does sort of large, different types of pieces. He visits communities for a week before he paints, meets people, catches the atmosphere in the neighborhood where he's going to be working. He is internationally featured. If somebody does want more details, I can send some links to review. This is another of his pieces. This piece is about 8 stories high in total. This is just sort of the top half of it. A little different than what we're used to, but you know, I think it's exciting nonetheless. So this mural was done in Halifax this past season by Kristen De Palma. She goes by KDP Letters. This is the welcome mural that's sort of becoming famous in downtown Halifax. She'd like to do a piece or two in Yarmouth, which I think is exciting. This is her with one of her pieces. This would be along the lines of what we might see in town. Her concept is coming up in a moment here. Her collaborative mural, her and this fella who is with Talking Wall Designs, they want to bring back to life lobster label. where Yarmouth had the province's first commercial cannery, and they have ideas. I've seen some of the ideas. There's a few locations that might be very, very good for such an idea. This is her sort of proposal to what she wants to do for lettering in Yarmouth, and she has sort of come up with this quote, "My life, my love, and my lady in the sea." It would sort of have a seascape-esque background, and the lettering isn't to be determined, but this is just to show an example of what she's capable of. Oops. This is one concept from Danielle Mahood for something she's been thinking about doing, obviously an ode to the local flora and fauna. You know, you've got the lupins there, you've got the wild mushrooms that are big for foraging now, you've got shipwrecks, you know, the rocky coast, seafood, of course. This is another, these are just potential concepts. Looking at this quickly, I didn't even first notice until I looked at it again, but on the teacups, these are various, this Yarmouth County Museum, one of the places on two of the places on Collins, and then again, local flora, fauna, that sort of thing. So we have some target locations for this year. The old Salvation Army building, the price has been reduced dramatically. I don't know if there's discussions going on with a potential sale, but certainly if it does sell, I think that the facade program would be attractive to the new owner. On the corner of Main and Cliff, there was an application done, sorry, no application, but a rendering done a few years ago, just sort of before COVID. And so we're going to revisit that one and see if we can't make it happen. Also 372 Main, which is the building across from Jake's. One Civic is sort of done there on its own, as you're aware, and there's the potential for 3 more Civic addresses, so that's incentive to a buyer for the building there. And as well, there's people who have been interested but haven't put applications, so we need to, our committee is going to be chatting with these folks. There's also the signage program, which gives a business up to $500 towards enhanced signage. So there's $2,000 allocated right now. It could potentially grow to $4,000, but again, you know, it's going to involve talking with people, engaging interest this next coming month, which I will be home and do intend to spend some time going door to door through the entire corridor with my committee members promoting the program. So this is our budget forecast. If you want to see the detailed Excel budget, I can provide that to you, but I didn't want to make this boring, so I didn't include it. So basically this year, we would approximate 30,000 to facade, 2 to 4 for signage, probably close to 30,000 for murals. If these artists all work out, and if we do find spaces and business owners and building owners willing to put up the other funds, which now is 25%, rather than 50% for the mural up to 10,000. So we have about $40,000 in the budget currently, and so the funding request, which has been submitted, I don't know if it's been reviewed, but it's been submitted. The request this year is for $35,000, which I don't think is completely unreasonable, but that's for you all to decide. So we had an AGM yesterday. Actually, we did the AGM last evening. We had 3 new committee members join. Everybody else is staying. A 4th actually submitted an application after the meeting because they'd forgotten about the timeline. So we now have 9 members. We will have 9 as of our meeting on March 3rd. We've got 8 at the moment. And we've also included members from, we've got a member from Wedgeport, we've got a member from the municipality, we've got a member who lives in downtown Yarmouth, we've got a member who's out in Chebogue, and we have a member who lives between Kemp and Carlton Street. And a lot of diverse, varying backgrounds among these people. So I think, you know, we're poised to have a good year here. We're going to do this public outreach thing in March because the deadlines are coming up at the end of March for murals especially. And so there is a list. Again, I can send the list over. There's 100 locations for decent spots for murals. They don't have to be enormous. You know, they don't all have to be huge. There can be small, sort of hidden away ones as well. And that's it from me. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the work you've been doing. Is there any questions? Councillor Hatfield, go ahead. Your mic's not on.
Good there. Thank you, Dave. That was a wonderful presentation, and it's really exciting to see the stuff happening. Can you just confirm what you said about the 25% now for the for murals? Is that just for the murals, or?
Yeah, the mural. So the amount for murals used to be 50% of a project up to $10,000, and to try to make it more attractive, we increased it to 75% up to $10,000. We had a lot of stalling during COVID. Also, you know, with travel restrictions, there were artists from Montreal and Halifax who wanted to come and paint. They couldn't come and paint. So we're really hoping this year to really bolster it up and sort of see what we can do this year. And then if it needs to be amended back, so be it. And if it seems to work, then we'll keep it. But I think we needed to have some sort of incentive to really, you know, keep things moving in a positive direction here.
Good. No, I was just wanted to confirm that what I heard was right, but that's great. I mean, we need to do what we need to do what we need to do, right? So.
Yeah, and one of the murals, and again, I don't want to say a lot because it's, you know, it's not penned in and everything else, but there's one that's potentially going to be sponsored completely, so it won't cost the town/committee any money whatsoever. It'll sort of be a community art type of thing, and I can discuss that further. I'm hoping before the end of March rolls around, and I can discuss with the other parties and the committee, and we can all be on the same page with it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Councillor Lesser, did I see your hand there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say wonderful job. That's looks pretty impressive with some of the stuff to come, especially the house on Main Street with the rendering down by Ultramar. That looks incredible. But your work is the work of you and your committee is doesn't go unnoticed, and it's really making a difference in the town. So thank you.
I appreciate it. I'd also like to comment. I mean, we have a couple of council members sitting here in front of me who laid the framework for all of this, so they need to be commended as well. We're hoping to be able to sort of pick up where they left off and keep things moving in a strong direction.
Councillor Dares?
Yes, actually, I have a question and a comment, if I may. First off, David, I'm wondering the 500 Main Street location, that is a commercial venture?
Yeah, the bottom level is going to be commercial. I don't know if I can say, if I'm allowed to say.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, the owners of the building are going to live upstairs, and they're going to have their business downstairs.
Perfect. Thank you. And just my other comment would be that I was really pleased to hear that you intend to make personal contact. As you know, I'm a very strong supporter of this program. I think it's wonderful. I think it's made such a huge difference in the town of Yarmouth. And it's been so nice to work with the volunteers over the years that have assisted in this program. But I'm really pleased to hear that you're going to make personal contact, because quite honestly, as a chairperson for several years, I found that was the most effective means of having people participate. So good on you. And can't wait. Yep. Can't wait to see the rest of your work. It's really exciting.
You know how election campaigns go. It'll be like that, but like we're going to intend to visit businesses, and you know, we have some members who know certain business owners and don't know others, and we're going to be strategic about it and present facade and mural, or vice versa, and just make sure that people are aware the program still exists and what it entails, and that you know, sort of multiple options, you know, and I hope we can see a few more, you know, a few more things happen.
Well, some of our most successful projects over the years have been inspired by personal contact. So it's a great method. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Councillor Heather, did you have your hand back up?
I did. Yeah, I did. I just when Councillor Dares was speaking, it just made me think of something. Just a comment to everybody, but to Dave as well. When Communities in Bloom judges come to Yarmouth, the facade program has been a huge hit, to the point that one of the judges is from Sussex, New Brunswick, and they are now looking at and may actually have already implemented the facade program and mural program there based on what we've done. So like Councillor Dares says, it doesn't go unnoticed by everybody. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gorman, for your presentation and your hard work, and please pass along to your committee that we are very pleased with the work that's being done, and happy to support. Mr. CAO, would this be the time for us to discuss the financial contributions that were?
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest you make a motion to refer to budget.
So moved.
Counselor Dare, seconded by Counselor Bell. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded, motion carried. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gorman, once again.
Thanks for your time, everybody. I really appreciate it. See y'all soon.
Take care. Okay. 8A, CAO report. Any questions for the CAO on his report today? Nope. I'd just like to make the comment that I think our staff does a great job with their reports. It's always nice to read them over, and you kind of look back and realize how much you accomplished in a very short time when you see the completed things and whatnot. So thank you for that. 8B, fire report. Any questions for Mike? Is Mike with us today? No, he isn't. So if you had any questions, you'll have to hold until next time, I guess. Operational services. Any questions for Chad and the hardworking people who have been keeping our streets plowed out? And thank you for that. It seems like every weekend we get that big storm, but by Monday the roads are all, cleared and looking good again. So thank you for that, Chad. Councillor Lesser, go ahead.
Actually, Councillor Bell was first.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Bell.
I echo that. We have been hit by, a cascading series of storms, and I don't feel as though, I've been shut in any time during this winter. It's amazing how fast everything gets cleaned up. My question for Chad is just for information. I noticed in one of the alert notices that went out about one of the snowstorms, they talked about the process for clearing sidewalks. And I noted that the north end was done. They were doing the center town, and they were going to be cleaning up or finishing up in the south end in the next day or two. So my question is the same pattern used for every snowstorm? Do you follow the same process for every snowstorm? Do the north end, center town, and then south end at the end, or do you switch up where you start?
Mr. Chairman, Chad is not on the meeting today. He's on vacation.
Okay.
That's a question that we can take away and find you a response to that.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Lesser?
Yeah, just another comment once again of how great our staff is with the town. It's been a difficult winter, obviously, and they're doing really well with snow removal. But also, we hear about it from people, the potholes, and I think sometimes people think that we're the ones creating them. But it's given the situation we live in. We just brought in a ton of international students, and they're saying, how come your roads are so bumpy? And, explain to them that it freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, and it goes back and forth. And those are something that naturally happens. And I see them out constantly filling them in. And, thank you for doing that. I don't think people recognize sometimes the amount of work that goes into keeping that part of the road up. I know people, unless you're paving a road, it seems like it's not getting done. But I can certainly see the difference in, from one day to the next with some of these potholes getting fixed.
And I also always encourage the public, if they do see one, we do have the C-Click Fix app to make sure that you get it in, and even if it's already there, to maybe, put it there 2 or 3 times, and the likelihood that, that will be seen and be fixed up from there is at a very high level. So yeah, I think that's the same for every town. Given our climate in Nova Scotia, we all battle the road. So yeah, Mr. CAO, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned C-Click Fix, so I'll just take this opportunity to prime you for a future presentation. So we've been getting a lot of reports on C-Click Fix, and it is only necessary to put something in once, and then it's there and it's publicly visible, and we respond to it. what staff have found and let me know is that sometimes the submissions are not complete enough for them to act on, and so they have to go back and forth with the reporter to find out exactly what the complaint is and where it is. So staff have been working with C-Click Fix, and there will be some additional fields or some additional information will be requested right at the time that the problem is reported that will increase the speed at which and the accuracy at which we can react to those complaints. So that presentation will be coming forward to council probably at next month's committee of the whole to show you what staff have done to make that system a little better.
Perfect. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Up next, Planning and Economic Development Report. Is Natalie with us, or is she with the mayor at the moment?
She is with the mayor.
Okay. So this is Hold Your Questions Day, I guess, if you do have any.
With that, but yeah,
No worries.
It appears to be.
It's a quick meeting, Steve.
It's the only kind I have, Councillor Heather. Up next, Engineer Report, Mr. Brophy. Mr. Brophy with us today.
Yes, I am.
Hello, sir. Any questions for Mr. Brophy? Nope. That's how good these reports are. If anyone takes the time to read them, I'm telling you, by the time you're done, you know exactly what's going on. So thank you for all your work, Mr. Brophy.
I believe Councillor Lesser has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Lesser, sorry.
Sorry, I just raised my physical hand at first, and then I changed it to the online one. Just seeing if there's any chance we might be able to convince you to not move forward with retiring. Your work it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's you've saved a ton of money for the town and got a lot of projects done, and I don't know how it's possible we're ever gonna try to replace that, and hopefully you'll at least be on retainer or something for us. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. We got people well positioned to take my place, I assure you.
Councillor Dares?
Just the same, if Councillor Lesser makes that a motion, I'll second it.
And thank you for your work on the Mariners expansion as well, and everything you also do in our town. Much appreciated to both you and the work that Jerry does on that on the side. So thank you.
That was very subtle, Councillor Lesser.
8F, Finance Department. Jerry, any questions? I don't know if Jerry's on. I can't see everyone, but
Jerry is here.
No, I'm here. I apologize. Didn't get my report uploaded, not without lots of reminders from Lindsay. I just never got there. But finance department's been busy, but we've been really focused on budgeting, and to the point where we have the Mariner Center and the Waste Park both going to their boards early next week. So now that part is done, my focus and our focus is down on the town's capital budget and their operations. So I have all the pieces for those budgets, so I'm pulling them together. So hopefully early next week I'll have a review with Jeff on the capital at least, and we'll try to get in front of council with the capital budget sometime soon.
perfect. Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you, sir. 8G, Yarmouth Recreation, Mr. Grant. Any questions for Frank? I bet you that was a great announcement yesterday to hear things are getting back to normal, and all the planning, I'm sure, that goes along with COVID and whatnot. It'd be nice to put that behind us and get back to some normalcy, I'm sure, especially for you and Rec.
For sure. We're really excited that we won't have to worry about all the restrictions that are put upon us, and looking forward to the 21st and having a great year with activities and lots of people around, and switch open street events and all kinds of different things. I did want to mention some sad news that we received this week. Sarah LeBlanc, our community recreation coordinator, is leaving us. She's accepted a job in West Hants, doing the same position basically there as their community recreation programmer. And it's said that Sarah started with us a week before COVID hit. So she had a week of normalcy, just starting your training, and then all of a sudden COVID hit and everything went as it's been for the last 2 years. So as soon as we get the notice that restrictions are lifting and we're going to get back to a normalcy, we've been advised that she's moving on. But I just wanted to mention that we'll miss her, but that doesn't limit our abilities to get things going and to get Yarmouthians moving, getting together and socializing and doing all the great stuff that we've done in the past.
Perfect, thank you. I've noticed the work that she's done since she's been here, especially online, and the presence she had. So I'm sure that's a loss to your staff, but hopefully there's some good names out there that gets their name in, and you continue on doing the work that you've been doing. So thank you for that, Frank. Any other questions for Frank, Mr. Lesser?
Just if you could pass on our appreciation for the work that she has done as well, and it doesn't go unnoticed as well. When we sometimes do lose staff. I think we do a pretty good job of finding good staff members, and sometimes we lose them because they do such a good job, they move somewhere else. So if you could pass that along to her, that we really appreciate the work she's done here, and hopefully somebody else will apply that can fill her shoes.
Thank you, I will.
Thanks, Frank. Councillor Dares, go ahead.
I just wonder in this case, it would be appropriate to have a letter from the town thanking her for her commitment to the community and her service over the last 2+ years.
Would you like to make that a motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
I have a seconder, please. Councillor Lesser. All in favor, do so by saying aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. I think that's a great idea, Jill. Thank you for that. Okay. New business. Splash Park site selection. The recommended motion is that council support the site selected for the Splash Park at the Mariner Center. Ooh, hands going up. That's good. Is this motions or people would like to talk?
I'll make the motion.
Perfect. And seconded by Councillor Lesser. Any discussion on this one? Councillor Dares?
So yeah, being familiar with the site, maybe too familiar with the site, complete agreement with the site selection. I think it's gonna be perfect, and I think it allows for additional amenities to be included in the future. But I did want to pass on to council that I've had correspondence, I guess, with Linda Gallagher, who has championed this project from day one. And my only concern was in this community, on more than one occasion, we've built less than we needed. So we had a brief conversation about the actual design of the splash park, and I just wanted council to know that she's assured us that they will come back with a design and share it with council to ensure that the splash park meets the community needs. In other words, that we don't build less than we could accommodate. Because you'll see pictures of splash parks at times and they look really exciting, but there's only like 12 people featured in the picture. And I think this is going to be more popular than people realize, and that we have to be able to accommodate more than 12 people. So anyway, she's assured me that they'll be sharing the design concepts with us, and we can make sure that we're getting what the community needs rather than less than the community needs as we have in the past. So just wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
Councillor Lesser?
I'll definitely be supporting the motion, and once again, thank you to the crew behind this and the work that they put in, not just with organizing, but fundraising for it. It's such an incredible thing to see happening in Yarmouth. And you see these in other communities, or you see community pools and everything. And this is going to be such an addition to so many families that are looking for something to do with their children. It's incredible to see that it's actually happening. And, sometimes you hear about these like pipe dreams and think that would be nice to have down the road. And this one seems to have, materialized pretty quick without a lot of hard work, with a lot of hard work, sorry. And it's exciting to see that we're at that point that, that we're getting a site selection. Thank you.
I think I'd second that for sure. I think one of the things that I'm always happy with is when the committee comes to council and they already have their own funds or way of funds to raise and don't just ask for the whole, this is what I need, gimme. Linda and her crew have worked hard, went to councils and asked for a piece of it, but continue to work hard and raise funds throughout it. And $350,000 in a year or two is no small feat. So kudos to them for the work that they've done and continue to do. So Mayor Moo, did I see your hand there?
You did. I was just catching the tail end of what Derek was saying, and I think you just said what I wanted to share. The beautiful thing about the splash park for me, and I think I told you last week, I did a keynote Saskatchewan for their municipalities on community engagement, and the level of engagement is directly proportional to I want to say how much you handed over to the community. And in this case, it's basically 100%. It's 100%. The ask of us was very little. And this means that what the community values, the community is paying for. They're showing up in droves to support this. And this is the way things are supposed to be. And you just said it. It's not coming to council with your hand out, because we can certainly give a hand up. But in this case, it was, in my view, this was the perfect example of community engagement on a level that perhaps we don't always call community engagement, but that's exactly what it was. So I'm really proud of the work that they've done, and they're a shining example. Thank you.
Agreed. Anyone else? There's no further discussion. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded, motion carried. Perfect. (9B), Mariner Center Expansion Committee. The recommended motion is the council, in anticipation of comprehensive budget submission for 2022-23, move to immediately advance the amount of $20,000 to the Mariner Center Expansion Project to allow for the awarding of a contract to proceed with phase 1 of a fundraising plan. Motion. Can I get a seconder? Second by Councillor Lesser. Go ahead, Councillor Dares. Your mic's not on.
I knew you'd catch me sooner or later. So just to give those that were not, I know that the mayor and deputy mayor are on the committee and are fully aware of the circumstances behind this, but as is the CAO. But basically, just to inform the others on council, we're in a situation where the CAO, the Mariners Center, would like to proceed with a fundraising initiative. This fundraising initiative, even if the expansion were not to take place, which we're not afraid of that happening, but even if that was not to take place, this fundraising plan would be an integral piece of what we require for the future of the Mariner Center and Mariners on Main, because it will identify potential fundraising possibilities, sponsorships, all of those pieces. So the CAO of the Mariner Center is strongly advising that we proceed now to get phase 1 completed. In order to do that, because all the 3 councils had committed to a budget, I think, of $100,000 initially for the expansion, and some of that has been expended. There is still some money remaining in the budget, but not in a sufficient amount to cover this cost. We can wait until we receive a full comprehensive budget from the Mariner Center Mariners Expansion Committee, which may take some time, or we can commit $20,000 now, as the other 2 councils hopefully will do is in unison with us, and proceed with the fundraising initiative now, because the longer we wait, the longer it's going to take when we finally hit the ground running. So I would strongly recommend that we accept, that we pass this motion, and that we authorize $20,000 towards the budget that we anticipate is going to be coming through very shortly. But it will enable the CAO of the Mariner Center to award the contract at this time. And just to update, the RFP on that was issued last October, I believe, and basically we've been holding the applicants in abeyance since that time. So it would be nice to move forward. Well, thank you.
Councillor Heather?
Thanks, Councillor Dares. So is this above and beyond the original commitment of 100,000?
Yes. Well, the original commitment of 100,000 was some time ago, and I think that there's been approximately $58,000 of that has been expended. So there's an insufficient amount left in the budget to proceed to award this contract. It was properly vetted. The proposals were received from a number of companies. This one was went through a very rigorous examination to determine the best possible company to proceed. And I think actually it's a combination of two companies working together that are going to put together this fundraising plan. But as I say, even if the expansion were not to occur, this fundraising plan would still be an extremely valuable tool for use for both the Mariner Center and Mariners on Main. So basically what we're asking for is a $20,000 advance on a proposed budget that will be coming through for the 2022-23 fiscal year.
And we're looking at the other two municipalities that we're asking them to do the same?
Yes, the recommendation was all three councils commit that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Moon?
Thank you. So that was my question too, because I was in camera obviously, but I had to leave a little bit early, and I didn't hear the motion outside of camera. So Jeff, I'm just going to ask bluntly, time wise, is everything lined up the way it should be for us to do this?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And you know what I'm talking about.
Not exactly, but
well, I'm talking about the paperwork that has to be done with partnerships, things like that. But maybe that doesn't affect this. That's what I'm asking, because we would have done it earlier, but we wouldn't have gotten where we got.
Right. No, I think that we're headed in the right direction there. The CAOs have some work to do, and we're doing it. And we'll have a little discussion later today about that in camera.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Any other discussions about this? Hearing none, all in favor do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay. 9C, ICIP 2022 grant application, selection of projects.
So, Mr. Chairman, Demario Dunkley, our project engineer, has a presentation to deliver. So I'll let Demario take over, but I think he's probably going to share his screen for the presentation.
Perfect. Welcome, Demario.
Thank you. Just going to share my screen here. The purpose of this exercise is to select two projects to use for. The purpose of this exercise is to select two projects to use for the 2022 ICIP funding application. We definitely had some input from Brandon and Mac, but Brandon isn't able to be here, but Mac is on the phone call if necessary. We will cover key elements of the grant, including the cost and scope of potential projects, and we will also close with a recommendation, and we'll open for discussion. And we also have suggested wording for a motion. So key elements of the grant include that the current criteria is wastewater, drinking water, stormwater, and solid waste. The town's contribution is 26.67%, with the remainder being covered by the province and the feds. The deadline is April 1st, 2022, and the earliest that we could possibly start a project if we were successful is in August. At this point, you probably have two questions. What are the projects and what are the costs? So in discussion with Chad, Rob, Brandon, we developed 5 projects totaling about just under $7 million. So these projects address our most urgent needs and they fit within the program criteria. The numbers that you see in front of you today for design and construction would be considered high-level estimates. And now we will briefly consider the scope of each project. So the first project is the Vancouver Intersection, and there are 2 more parts to this project. So it's Vancouver Intersection, Gardner Street Lift Station, and title protection. So for the Vancouver Intersection, obviously it's important because it provides access to the hospital, and it's a very busy intersection. And the scope of work would include an upgrade to audible pedestrian controllers, a full underground replacement, a full road rebuild, and also traffic light replacement. For the Gardner Street Lift Station, which is a wastewater lift station, the scope of work would consist of removing the stormwater connection to the lift station and providing a new exterior dedicated line. So currently stormwater is routed through a part of the lift station, and we just want to remove that so it's easier to provide maintenance and repair as we move into the future. And then obviously the third part of that project is the installation of a check valve near Marcos, where we have a sanitary overflow point. The point of that installation is to essentially keep salt water out of our system, which can obviously cause a lot of corrosion if it gets into our pumps. The second project on the list is the Central Street Underground. This project completes a sewer separation down on Main Street for streetscape. And until this is done, it flows into everything flows into a combined sewer that goes down Central Street. So ultimately, we're going to do full underground replacement, a road rebuild, and put in a new outfall between the Killam's building and Rudders. Argyle Street Underground. The town maintains a list of all of the stone sewer that are in town. And so this would be the next one up on the list in terms of its length. It's approximately 250 meters. And so with this, we would be doing a full underground replacement, and we would also be doing a full road rebuild and a new outfall. With the Brunswick Street underground extension, we would be trying to complete a 12-inch water supply from King all the way to Parade along Brunswick Street. As you know, we already did some of that work to just by the school's driveway, as you can see in the picture on the slide. For the last project, this is a wastewater treatment plant phase 1. This is required to meet federal regulations. There's a plan that has been developed already internally by the town. That effort's being led by Rob, who's also on this call. Essentially, the scope consists of a facility evaluation with recommendation for potential upgrades. Does Rob have anything to add?
Only to point out that this, again, is a phase 1 evaluation and assessment, and we have to meet requirements by 2040. But we probably should have start having a look at this because we need to start planning ahead to be able to meet the capital requirements for that requirement.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. And then for the next steps, essentially, we're hoping that council would pick 2 projects today, and that would then give us enough time to start working on some concept designs and estimates. And then we would be able to prepare the application to give to the CAO for review the week of March 14th. And what we found internally when it comes to grants is that you know, three things: be first, be good, and be responsive. And we've gotten very good at getting grants. In terms of our recommendation, we would recommend projects 1 and 2 for the ISIP application in 2022 at a approximate cost of $3 million for design and construction. And we feel that these 2 projects address our most urgent needs and fit the program criteria. And also just a reminder that there's no guarantee that these projects will proceed or that the grants will be approved, but it's certainly important to mention that the grant funding accelerates timelines. Anything to add, Jeff?
No, Demario, that was a great job. I think if the councillors have questions, I guess you've made it very clear that we need a motion. A motion is one of the requirements for the submission. Without a specific motion to the prioritization of these projects, we can't make the submission. So that's why it's being brought forward to you today in this form. And I think Demario also mentioned this is not a case of the project has to be completed next fiscal year. I think there's about a 3 to 4 year time horizon to complete. Demario, is that right?
Yes. Yes, we certainly have some time in terms of the completion for the projects. We have them up until 2027. So it's definitely a multi-year, multi-phase sort of timeline, similar to what we're doing right now with the AT trails. So for the final slide, this is a suggested wording for motion. I don't know if that's going to be the final wording, but this is definitely a starting point.
So the only question I have is, how did you get yourself in front of the PowerPoint, Demario?
I was in front of it the whole time? Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Were there any questions or room for discussion?
So would we make that motion first, or would we pick the 2 that we want and then move forward, or?
Yeah, so essentially, we've recommended projects 1 and 2 with the intent that is what you would put in the motion.
Okay, Councillor Cleveland, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. What I want to say, actually, you gave us lots of choice there, but you guys are the experts, not me. And so if you're recommending projects 1 and 2, to me, it's just basic faith in what you guys do that we go with that. The other projects are very worthy, and I know there's so much to be done over the course of years, but thank you for what you've done. It's a great presentation. And if you wish, I'm happy to make that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Lesser. Mayor Mood, did I see your hand up there?
Yeah, you did. I agree. They're the experts. I do have one question, and it's around, sorry, I'm trying to multitask. It's around Vancouver Street. I mean, that's the hospital. That's how does that work? Like just to calm the nerves. That's going to be a lot of communications. A lot of communications.
Your Worship, in terms of the execution, I assume the question is, how do you keep them in business while you do this project? That's the challenge of the work, but I can tell you it'd be much easier to manage it as you're doing a project than trying to manage it when something fails.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
So just like when Demario's team did Parade Street this year, Demario Mark's team, everybody on the street had service, and if there was going to be a service interruption, there was notification, and so you put in temporary lines while you replace the existing ones, and then you flip it over.
And I think I'm not worried about that. My concern is, and I agree fully with the project. It needs to get done. I'm just sitting here thinking, Parade Street is one thing because there's 10 other ways people can get into town, but going from town to the hospital is a little bit different. I guess we're going up through Hebron. That's the only way, I assume. So I guess that was it, but that's a communications piece in the end.
Yep.
So CAO, do you have your hand up there?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. I wanted to mention that the project that there's an important project on the list that's much smaller in scale, and I'm going to suggest that we'll consider that one under the regular capital budget to be funded by the town, and that is the wastewater treatment plant assessment. It's way smaller than these other projects, and it is important to be done, but I think we can swing that within our own means and look for cost sharing on a couple of these bigger projects. And we can submit up to 2, so that's why there are 2 within the suggested motion.
Great. Councillor Dares?
I'm just not sure. Have we voted on the original motion first?
Nope. Mr. Councillor Cleveland had made the motion to do the recommended number 1 and number 2, and Councillor Lesser had seconded it, and we just have the discussion on the floor at the moment.
Yeah, I was prepared to offer another additional motion based on what the CEO has just mentioned. So I'll hold off.
Okay. Any more discussion on this one?
Question.
All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you, Demario.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Dares?
Yeah, just I will now make a motion supporting the request by the CAO that we proceed to do the assessment at the wastewater treatment plant out of our existing budget.
Seconded by Councillor Bell. Any discussion on that one? All in favor, do so.
Was
Go
that
ahead.
was it to refer it to the next budget, Jeff, or out of this existing?
Capital budget.
So
So
we're
that would-
referring it to.
Yeah, so that'll come forward. It'll be added to the list and worked into the capital budget.
Okay, just for that motion to refer. Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay. No further discussion. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded, motion carried. Great. Look forward to seeing the good work that will be done in that project, hopefully. Correspondence, letter of thank you from the Tri-County Pregnancy Care Center. Just to thank you there. 10B, Municipal Affairs, NSCC Housing. CIO, would you like to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think I will. I'm not sure if we had a discussion at the table about this, but it was mentioned in a meeting with CAOs and the deputy minister that the province was looking to add more student housing at community college campuses throughout the province. And if the way it was presented is if you have a community college in your community that requires housing, to let us know. So I wrote a letter advising that we thought that there was a need and be interested in assessment. That's what it was, an assessment in whether, what the level of need was in Yarmouth for student housing. And the response did not address specifically whether they would do an assessment. It didn't address specifically student housing, just generally spoke to the housing programs that the province has. So a little bit disappointing, didn't provide any insight into what action they would take on student housing specifically.
Mayor Moore?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That might just be a phone call. I'm not sure why they didn't respond to the question, but maybe I'll make a phone call. I mean, we really need this. I'm trying to balance between the conference I'm on and this. Minister Lord just finished speaking. If everything's on the table, and that student housing opens up a lot of other housing once that takes place. So it's a really big deal. So we need to get her done.
Agreed. Any more discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll move on. Letter of thank you from Autism Nova Scotia. And now we're on 11A to rescind the COVID vaccination policy.
Mr. Chairman, today this is a discussion item more than looking for a decision. A few months ago we passed a mandatory COVID vaccination policy, And I was watching yesterday when the Premier was announcing the acceleration of the removal of restrictions and requirements within Nova Scotia. And one of the things that they're removing is and I think it's effective Monday, is the mandatory vaccination for discretionary indoor activities. So the rationale for changing that was that the reason for it in the first place was to encourage and incentivize people to get the vaccination up to the level that we needed in the province. And he spoke to the fact that we have 92% who have taken the shot, and that there was no longer a need to continue to restrict people from accessing those services and opportunities. And I'm reflecting on our own policy within the town. So currently, we have one person on an administrative leave who had considered leaving our employment altogether, and may very well have. But I like to say we have almost 100% participation and compliance within the town. And the question is, does it make sense to continue to have that policy in place? Because we have fully incentivized and nudged our current group of employees, and I'm not sure. So I'm just putting you on alert that that's something we need to think about. You may see a motion suggested at the council meeting next month or the month after suggesting this, but I just wanted to be clear that the policy itself was never intended to be a permanent forever. It was intended to deal with the pandemic. And if in fact it's time to rescind, when I've had a chance to scan the landscape and see what others are thinking on this, I may come forward with a recommendation to that end. So just kind of forewarning there that something may change.
Okay, Councillor Lesser, did I see your hand up there?
You did, but I think you answered what I was going to ask.
Perfect. So this is just a heads up more for down the road, and I'm sure after that yesterday we were all quite happy. So, Councillor Bell.
Right. Yeah. My observation is around the concept of there's a difference between the vaccine mandates, which are mandates that employers have put in place, and the vaccine passports, which were put in place to protect people in places where people gather. I think the vaccine passport became basically redundant with Omicron because people who were vaccinated were no longer necessarily not infectious. So therefore, the passports kind of outdid their usefulness. The mandates, on the other hand, speak to occupational health and safety in the workplace. And I think that we just have to think about that in those terms, that one is not the same as the other and not meant to do the same thing. The question that I had was what to do about new hires, and is it the intention to not require vaccination for new hires? And if that's the case, then I think it's probably time to review the policy and think about letting it go. But that's my only observation was there an intention from an occupational health perspective to require new hires to be vaccinated? And yeah.
So again, this is up for discussion and consideration. But if the policy disappears, so too does the requirement for new hires at the time of hiring to be vaccinated. But keep in mind that if this pandemic isn't over, and if a new variant emerges that causes restrictions to come back, and employers, if the movement becomes to rescind these policies, there can be a future movement, whether it's pandemic flu or pandemic COVID, to bring back in requirements such as mandatory vaccination or administrative leave to protect the workplace. And I will say this, that this morning I did notice that the Chief Medical Officer of Health in Ontario, I believe it was suggesting that these employer mandates, it might be time to remove them. But that's the first that I've seen of a Chief Medical Officer referencing them. So let's keep our ear to the ground and see what the movement is on this issue.
Sounds good. Any more discussion around that one? Councillor Lesser?
I try not to. I try hard not to get too involved in this kind of debate for obvious reasons. It's a very divisive issue. But I know yesterday's news was very welcome for a lot of people, including myself. I think at first, it was also scary for some, including myself. And I think the mixed emotions that are going around right now, I'm hoping both sides can kind of come together, and I'm speaking more, I guess, to the public, but both sides come together and, whatever happens, I've trusted public health the whole way through. And if public health is saying it's time to move on, my thoughts are it's time to move on. It seems early to me, but I'm not the expert. I think I put my trust behind the science. I did my part in getting vaccinated, all that stuff. But, I think this could linger on for a long time if people stick to their guns on certain issues. And I think, to me, I think the step forward for everybody is following what public health guidelines are, because we've done that all the way through. And I think that's, I think when they asked yesterday the question around what does it mean for employers, and they didn't have a full answer at that point, I thought, they're ready to announce it at this point, but I don't think they're ready to talk about all the details. That kind of surprised me, to be honest, that they must have anticipated that question coming. And I was surprised they didn't have an answer, but sometimes things take a little bit more thought, and maybe they want to have that extra thought prior to making a decision. But I think any decision we make should follow public health. That's what we've done all the way through, and I still trust in what they have to say. And I'm not anti-trucker or anything. I'm just trying to do the right thing. And I think public health, I think, has done a good job guiding us through this. Everybody didn't follow through with getting vaccinated or mask or whatever the case is, and that's fine. But I think decisions around employment and that type of thing, we should see what public health is going to recommend in the end and follow their lead.
Thank you. I agree. As far as I'm concerned, the worst symptom of COVID is the division that it's caused. So if we can put all that behind us, regardless of the needles and the masks or whatever, that would be the best. So looking forward to a summer getting back, hopefully to some events and doing what we can and putting all this behind us. So thank you. 11B, grants to organizations. Councillor Dares.
So thank you. I guess before I make a motion, I don't know if it's proper to discuss it before the motion, but I just wanted to just review where we were and where we might be going, if that would be appropriate prior to a motion. Hearing no comment, I guess I'll just wade into it. So my understanding is the grants to organizations in years past was the budget for those was somewhere in the vicinity of $75,000, and that the practice was to keep a reserve somewhere in the area of $10,000 for those circumstances that might arise, unexpected circumstances that might arise throughout the year. I know that council used to complete worksheets that would, so each councillor and the mayor would take the grants and apply their own, I guess, amount to that worksheet, and then it would average out over the 7 and be, that would be the final determination. One of the things about that is I think that the worksheets were shared. We've never had discussion or any discussion, I guess, and I think those worksheets were shared. so that every counselor knew what every other counselor had provided as an amount towards that particular organization. I think from my perspective, having been on the other side of the table where I've presented a number of times to council over the years, there's no opportunity to ask questions. There's no opportunity to share information, something that I might know that somebody else might not, or something that another counselor might know. And so I'm finding it really difficult. I found it difficult last year, having gone through that process for the very first time, where we just all applied a number, and then at the end of the day, that's what it was. I'm not sure that's a great thing. I'm also under the impression, and I guess I don't want to quote the CAO, but I think my understanding is that the amount of the budget was reduced throughout the COVID years. So we're now somewhere about half of what we used to, or maybe even, about half of what the budget used to be. And I guess my concern is that we're coming out of COVID now, and people are going to start moving again. We're going to have events. We're going to have things happening in the community, hopefully, where we all get back together. And maybe it's possibly the time that we should restore the budget back to where it was years ago. And so anyway, I'm throwing that out for conversation. I guess I'd make a motion that we restore the budget to the historic amounts, just to before we make a final determination for this year.
Thank you, Councillor Cleveland.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Couple of comments on what Gil said. I'm what, 4 or 5 years into this process, and it's a misery. I'm not lying. It's a misery trying to figure this out. You're never going to be right. You're always going to be partially right, perhaps, but you're never going to be right, because there's never enough money for what's being asked, ever. Everybody's deserving of something, and it's just not an easy process at all. I would like, if it is possible, and if it's not, that's fine by me. But if it is possible, I agree. I would love to see a bit of an increase on what we were given this year, because this year, I have to be honest, and I do not take this in the wrong way. I mean this in the most respectful way, but I've done my budget, but it was a bit of a joke, because you've got so much money that's being requested that I started by cutting every request in half and seeing how that did, and then kind of moving from there. It's done, but not in a satisfactory way, in my opinion, not to me. I'm not feeling good about what I'm going to be passing in. I'll put it that way. So it is a difficult process. There's no question about it. But I would love to see if Gil is making a motion to increase the amount allocated, it would make it at least a little bit easier. And I would second that motion.
Mayor Moore?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, when you hand in that sheet, you should feel good about it. You should feel relatively good about it. I want to say a couple things here. Gil's right. We used to not just share with council, just as a matter of we're sitting at the table, how did you feel about this one? Or is there something I don't know about that one? The problem, and I've asked this, can we have this conversation in camera? Because we're talking about public entities, we're talking about people, we're talking about organizations, all of which have some importance in the community. And the difficulty is sitting in public with everybody watching, maybe saying some things that perhaps need to be shared, but shouldn't be shared publicly. I know that's like an oxymoron. I feel like I'm double talking, but there are concerns certainly with some applications. It was brutal sitting for a day and a half sometimes, to listen to everybody, but we had the opportunity to ask questions. and air our concerns and get more information and say year after year after year, this is what we need, and changing our policy and our sheets even to include different things that were important to us. Sorry. I can't. Yeah, so there's a lot of things to this, and I think we're all floundering a little bit. The sheets, I think I said this, the sheets we did share. We also shared publicly, but we stopped that because it's not each councillor giving an amount of money. It's council as a whole saying. So it's just like when we make a motion, we've stopped recording who made the motion and who seconded it, because it doesn't matter. It's a council decision, and it's the same with this. I'll just be blunt about it. The answer I got when I questioned some of the amounts, I said, somebody came to our table year after year after year and said, well, I don't need the money, but it's there, so I may as well apply. I can't, and this is just me, I can't in good conscience give money to an organization that says they don't need it. However, what I got in the other year was, but if I don't give the money, they might not vote for me. So there's no room for those stupid games at this table. There's just no room for it. And I'm thankful that we have a council that doesn't do that. But I'm also very aware of the fact that this has been tremendously difficult for everybody this time around. So can we put it off a month and have that conversation and ask the questions that we have to ask, and have a chat? Like maybe that's where we need to go for everybody to feel good and to say, this is why I do it this way. And let's be honest, this council has the ability to do that and put everything on the table, and still come out, shaking hands. Every council doesn't have that ability. It's a fight. This one isn't. It's just honesty, integrity, and we're really blessed to be this team and to be able to do that. So I'll say I'm fine with the budget amount right now as it sits, but maybe to recommend for next year's budget that there's more. But that's a council decision. So that's, I guess, what I wanted to share. And ask, because I'm asking Jeff, how do we have that conversation?
CAO, would you like to respond to that first, or?
Yeah, if that's okay, I will. So, I recognize the process is not easy at the best of times. I can remember back when we had a higher amount, it would often be in the area of 1/3 of what the amount asked was. So it's never a case of you'll be able to satisfy everyone, and I appreciate it's not an easy process. Back when we would spend a day meeting with every group, I think the councils had the opportunity to ask questions and to request specific information if there was anything missing. It did take time, but I think it made the process a little bit, and maybe a lot easier for the councillors. At least you understood and you could ask your questions, and you would talk. The councils would talk, during and in between the presentations, and that's a public meeting. People sat in the audience and witnessed a good part of the day, not just their own presentation, but the presentations of others, and they learned from it about what was going on in the community. So that might be something to consider bringing back. You cannot meet in camera to deliberate on grant allocation. Yeah. So it's important that there be transparency and around how your decisions are made. Right now, they're based on an application, and those are public. If there's a meeting with the applicants to ask questions and get more information, that will be a public meeting, and then you're left as an individual, as a counselor, to weigh your what you've heard and what you've seen, and how you see it balancing out, how you can allocate the money based on your experience and your values. But that to me, if you're going to add something to make the process easier, it would be that day of presentations and discussion.
Yeah, can I respond, Deputy? Thank you. And I agree, and I know we can't do it in camera, and I wasn't suggesting that we do. I know you weren't thinking I was suggesting that, but the ability to sit face to face with somebody is tremendously important, because you can ask those difficult questions and they're asked in a respectful manner. When somebody is not in the room and you're having the discussion about them or the organization, it's sometimes it comes across the wrong way, and that's no one's intention to hurt or, to send something out there that isn't true or that we don't have all the facts around. So face to face is, I think we need to get back to that, and maybe we have maybe we don't need everybody. Maybe the first time we need everyone, and make clear what the parameters are, and then after that, maybe we don't need. We just say as a council, this is who we'd like to invite. I mean, I'm fine with everybody, but so anyway, thanks for that, CAO.
Councillor Bell?
Just going back to the motion that's on the floor, I wanted to understand it's money coming out of the current budget, not the projected budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
So if I may, just to clarify,
Go ahead.
my understanding is that these grants would come out of the 2022-23 budget, not this year's.
Right.
So
Okay.
it would be appropriate
so-
to, if you wanted to increase the budget, to do it now.
Yep. That's good. Great.
Councillor Heather, did I see your hand, or are you good now?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to kind of restate what I had said at the last meeting, is that, it is hard work. It's very hard work doing this. But I've done it. I've submitted mine, as Lindsay had requested by this today. It's hard work, but I don't have a big problem with the process that we're using. So that's kind of where I sit with it right now.
Thank you. Councillor Dares?
So I guess, the problem I had was I've sat down with the spreadsheet to look at it and thought, so if I'm going to put $10,000 of that in reserve for unexpected applications that might occur throughout the year, that's almost a third of what we've dedicated to that account. And is it fair to reserve $10,000 for those that haven't applied yet? So I'm really caught up in the ethics of that. We're setting aside $10,000 for people that didn't meet the deadline, thereby restricting the amount that we're allowed to give to those that have met the deadlines. Secondly, this isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. What if, for example, I was to say, I'm going to give $25,000 to one organization, and that eliminates, and believe me, it's not as far-fetched as it might seem, because I'm aware of a circumstance where a councillor had actually, prior to being called out on it, had actually committed more money than had been requested to one particular organization. And of course, through discussion with other council members, became aware of the fact that probably wasn't a proper application of the process, and changed the amounts. But I really think it's important that we share the information amongst ourselves, and we all know what everybody else is thinking. And but the main, like I said, for me to set $10,000 aside to somebody that hasn't applied yet, that's where I struggle.
Thank you. Mayor Moo, did you have your hand up still?
I did again. I agree with Gil on the $10,000. I mean, putting 10,000, putting a third of it away is a lot to put away. And I also, you know, what Councillor Heather said. I mean, we've done what we've done for the year. So I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go from here. I'm just trying to find a way. I also would say, I'm echoing Councillor Heather, but it is a difficult process. I wish we had had the opportunity to have face-to-face with people. I mean, I did call councillors and ask, you know, what are you thinking on certain things, because that's just what you do, but only a couple. And I'm just hoping we're looking at those applications and seeing, you know, what we asked for and what was given, and understanding that sometimes the ask isn't. I think some are asking for more than maybe what's needed. It's a hard one to maneuver, but I'm talking in circles because it's a hard one. But I guess I was done for the year.
Councillor Heather?
Just a question. Is there a policy that mandates us to leave that 10,000 in reserve for the year, or is that just something that people have just been kind of doing for whatever reason? I'm just wondering where that has come from.
It's not a policy.
Okay, so we could give the full amount if we wanted. The 35,000 we could spend. Okay.
It's been a practice, not a policy, and I don't know that it was a practice the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't remember that being an issue before, so I just was wondering if I had missed something.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, as the newbie on council and going through my first grants to organizations process, I just took the naive assumption that I would follow the rules and apply the rules to every applicant equally, and then look at everybody's information in totality and make an assessment as if I were the taxpayer. And it's not an easy process, but I don't have any difficulty with the decisions that I made. I think all of us will, come to different decisions, and that's obviously part of the process. But this is the first I've heard about, taking 10,000 out. I followed the rules and I made sure that it actually balanced to the penny. So I would like to see some in reserve, and maybe that's a conversation that we could have about topping up that amount that we've already allocated with a reserve fund, because it is going to be a coming out year. So I certainly think there's room for discussion about the next year's budget and what we want to put aside for those events that might be part of that coming out. But I'm not terribly concerned about the process for what it's worth.
Mayor Moon, did you still have your hand up? Okay. I agree. I can say that this hasn't been easy in years past. In my first year, I had some counselors that were there for a few years kind of call me up and have a few discussions and help me out there. But as people have stated, it's hard. People do good work volunteer-wise in all these committees and all these applications, and you have to take into consideration people's ability to fundraise on their own, or reserves that they do have in their own bank, and it's a lot. So it's not a sit down and write an arbitrary number for sure. So this is one of the harder things between this and singing "Oh Canada" before the meetings. I find that quite hard. So I can definitely sympathize for when it comes to that. So I'm not sure where we want to go from here. Is there a motion on the table to increase this, or? I don't believe there was. Councillor Dares, you may have spoke about starting one, or?
Yeah, I think I hit it at a motion to increase the amount this year, and possibly it would be appropriate to include a $10,000 holdback for unexpected. I mean, there are groups out there that may form in the next 2 months that need seed money. So it's not unrealistic to believe that we may get requests throughout the year. And perhaps it would be appropriate to increase, if there was an increase in the budget, to include a reserve, which wouldn't have to be spent, but could be held in abeyance until such time as a properly vetted application was received. But I guess, I mean, I know the practice was to set money aside, and I tried to do that last year. And then I tried to expend the whole amount, and then I saw the other councillors hadn't, and I asked the question, why hadn't they? And that's when it was determined that some money was usually kept in reserve for late applications, or not late applications. I shouldn't call it that. I should call it unexpected applications. I don't think anybody intentionally doesn't apply to meet the timelines, but I think that, circumstances change throughout the year, and it may be somebody in October that's looking for, some money that they didn't know they were going to need. So I don't know if I want to call it late applications. I'd rather call it unexpected or unanticipated application. But I put down the whole amount last year, and then surprised to learn that other councillors may not have. And so that was when I asked the question. But I find this process that we're going through right now, with the limited amount that we have in front of us, I think it's difficult. And if I'm going to set $10,000 or an amount, it doesn't have to be 10,000. If I'm going to agree to set an amount aside for unanticipated applications, then that makes the process even more difficult for me. And I wonder if we shouldn't just, get to a point where I might just want to abandon the whole process and say, you're on your own. Good luck fundraising.
Councillor Cleveland, I believe.
Thank you, Deputy. Couple of things while we're having this discussion that pops into my mind. We need a policy. I really do believe that. I agree that we should have probably like a $10,000 set aside in case of something that pops up. I also feel that we should have a policy for another reason, and that is, and I'm not trying to finger any particular person, but we have $35,000 to give in this particular instance. Even if we had 75,000, which is a little bit larger, there needs to be a limit on the ask. I really feel that. It's a little bit ridiculous, is the word I'll use, to have $35,000 spread amongst all of these people when some of the asks are for 90 grand. It's just, we can't do it. And if we know we can't do it, then why allow the request to come in that way? There needs to be a policy in place, perhaps a $10,000 limit or something, but there needs to be a limit. And I really think we need to discuss this, maybe not now, that might not be the time, but we need a policy moving forward that makes more sense than what we're dealing with right now.
I agree, and I think people need to realize when they're applying also that these are grants to help out, not actual, funds here. This is 100% of what you need, and we'll take care of it. It's we appreciate what you do. We're kind of helping out, but these aren't, the do all and tell all. So, Mayor Move.
Yeah, I don't. I just want to say to Gil that I don't always give out 100%, but it's for different reasons. So maybe I'm the only one. I don't try to add it up so that I give out every penny, but I also, I can say this publicly because it's true. If you're getting a tax grant, I'm not going to put anything in the regular grant. That's just how I do mine. I think that we forget that the way we make our money and pay for services for our citizens is through taxation. And when we give that tax grant, that is taking money out of everybody's pocket. So they are huge grants. So yeah, and also with regard to Wade's comment, balancing that ask. I mean, we've often said if the town's here and we've got a bank account, it's easy to ask. It's easy to make the ask, but it's more difficult to sit down and say, does the ask match what we are trying to do with the grants process? And we have had a couple lately that are just, I mean, you just can't do it. And for some people, I guess maybe there's a little bit of guilt, or we feel bad because we can't. I don't know what's wrong with me lately, but I just don't go there. Like we do what we can. It's easy to say no, but it's easier to say no than it is to say yes to an amount that there's so many organizations out there that are worthy, right? And matching, what they're asking for and what's it going to bring the community, how is it going to benefit folks? So all those pieces. I agree with the policy. I agree with the policy. We just, I guess I could sit here and talk all day about this grants piece, because it's the unexpected, and that's a great word, Gil. That's exactly what they are, because it's not that people are applying late and saying, however, I can't remember the last time that an unexpected application came in and they didn't get 100% of what they're asking for. And I guess I have a little bit of issue with that, because, people are applying for various reasons. These organizations do great things. And they get a small portion of what they're asking for. But if you come in 6 months late and you're asking for funds, we just do, because it doesn't feel like a grant. It feels like something else. So I have a problem with that. We might have to have a little chat about that, or get something in writing. There's a lot of things. I don't know if we have the conversation later or what we do, but every time somebody asks a question, I have about 50 things to say. So I apologize. See, add me to a meeting, add length. Sorry, Steve, I just broke your record.
Big time. Councillor Dares, I believe you're up next.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and be brief this time. I agree with Councillor Cleveland that if somebody applies for $90,000, we should just send them a letter saying, we are obviously not the funding agency that you require. And I know that happened last year. And quite honestly, when I looked at it, I said, this is not within the town's scope of responsibility. And so I allotted zero to that particular budget line. And I think people have to be reasonable. I also agree with Mayor Mood that if you're getting a large tax break, that probably you should be satisfied with that. If you're not paying any taxes in, then you're getting a good break. And I'd like to listen to the argument on the other side of that, because there's probably a really good argument that I'm not aware of, where people should get a tax break plus, but I'm not aware of one. I'd be more than happy to listen to the argument, or to listen to the rationale. I guess my point is that for this year, right now, are we going to keep some funds for those unexpected applications? And the mayor's absolutely correct in that when those come in, they shouldn't actually always be automatically awarded 100% of the ask, because I think people are familiar with the process where you ask for 5,000 because you need 3, and so we shouldn't possibly automatically award the full amount. But I guess my intent today was, should we increase the budget? We can do that now, because this is next year's budget, where we could recommend to budget that we increase the budget for this year. And should we have a policy that we maintain or hold in reserve a certain amount for those applications that we know we're going to receive throughout the year. And if we don't receive any, hey, good on us. We saved $10,000. But I'm just finding it a really difficult process this year. I found it really difficult last year. It's no better this year. And I'm struggling with completing the worksheet.
Agreed. Councillor Bell?
I think this is more a question for the CAO, because I recognize that there are a number of the grants to organizations applications that are entertainment focused, they're tourism focused, and then there is the other section which is about basically providing support for social services. And it's led me to question how that has evolved, where we have the Sci-Fi Convention, the Seafest organizers, the YARC, you name it, coming to us for grants to provide funding for festivals and things that are going to be, our entertainment. So I guess I'm wondering, what's the role for tourism, economic development in this? And to what extent did the former Business Improvement District levy and the Yarmouth Development Corporation and the Waterfront Development Corporation and their roles, since they're not functioning in that way anymore, is that making the emphasis more squarely on council to provide this funding? And I'm just trying to get a sense of what it used to be like and whether it was any different.
So, Mr. Chair, I can answer that fairly succinctly. I don't think it's changed. I don't think that the Waterfront Development Corporation, aside from their relationship with the Coal Shed Festival, which I think I talked about the last meeting, I don't know that the YDC gave out grants, but I know that they had a organization that ran some events.
Is now exiting.
Okay. But I can tell you that the observation you made about the kind of the broad categories of applicants, that's been the way it has been for a very long time. And I can remember reflecting on that way back, and I remember Martin Pink was the deputy mayor at the time, and so it's been a few years. And his question is whether we should be breaking the pot of money into categories, and because it's hard, when you've got groups that are asking for, as you call it, entertainment, versus groups that are trying to support a social cause, right? How do you weigh those out? And that's the challenge that's the challenge you have. At the end of the day, we didn't create categories then, and I still think that it's better to keep it, because the pot is so small, to one broad category and let you weigh those things out. I do like the idea, if I can say so, I do like the idea of being clear with the applicants at the outset what the maximum amount that could be achieved through the program is. I think that would help you folks a bit, and it would also help the applicants, so that when they present you with a budget, it isn't a budget that needs 90,000 and you're able to give 2 and wonder if in fact you've just thrown away $2,000, because unless they can find the other 88, how are they going to do what they need to do or plan to do?
Mayor Mood, do you still have your hand up? Nope, I'll go. Okay. I think for me, the main question is, are we going to increase it or not? If we are, obviously, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room in those of us who haven't submitted it yet. And I'm sure those who have would want theirs back to see what they could do if there was extra. So go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, one of the things, I meant to say when I had the floor was the director of finance reached out to me and suggested that if we allocated 1 cent from the tax rate to grants to organizations, that would be $44,000. And 44,000 would essentially be the 35 that you've been working with, plus an additional, well, 9. So it might work to satisfy a couple of things here. Is it, if you tie it to the tax rate, in the 1 cent allocation for grants to organizations, you could still work with your 35 now and have some money there for the unexpected, not the late, the unexpected, the could have been anticipated applications that you might receive throughout the year. That's just a suggestion.
Your move?
Oh, yeah. So I'm just going to say I'd have a problem adding to the tax rate or grants.
No, not adding to, increasing the budget and tying it to it's 1 cent of your current tax.
This is what it represents. Okay.
Right.
Oh, I had a little panic attack there for a second. And I was going to say, you know what? Gary did not say that.
No, he wasn't proposing a tax increase, but rather tying the amount somehow to the levy, the tax levy, and that is, just an observation.
So can we, I'm just wondering if we'd be okay with, I'm just asking this question because I'm all over the place. With what we have now and then putting the 10,000 aside, because I use mine.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, I don't know if it's not a policy not to use it. So everybody could use that full amount that we were given. And then we could put 10,000 aside on top of that. Can we do that?
I like that. A little more wiggle room, still have reserves.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what Gil is trying to find a way around, it without and cover everything. Sorry, thanks.
Councillor Dares, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, just in the short term, I think that's the finance. The CFO has come up with a good solution for this year. We can obviously discuss this well into the future, but we've kind of flogged it to death, I think, over the last couple of months, because it's one of those things that's really controversial. But tying it to the tax rate and just saying, that basically gives us what we have now plus 9,000, and 9,000 is close enough to 10 to satisfy, I think, everybody. So I think we should accept that recommendation, and I'd make that motion.
Seconder, Councillor Lesser, seconds, and also you're up next to speak.
Somebody had brought up around, I think it was Councillor Dares maybe, that we have people applying for $90,000 when we only have 30 to give out, and why don't we set the limit? But if the intention of the grants is to help a number of organizations, can we redo the policy? I think that's kind of where we're heading, is to have it, so they don't even apply for an amount that we can't do. But should we really sit down and come up with what the intention of these grants are? And maybe it's $1,000 maximum. And I know that might not be much for anybody, but that might allow us to give out to more people, and then help them realize that we're not a funding organization. Fundraising's involved and stuff, and I think if you need more than, for example, if we decide on 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the amount is, if you need more than that, then you're gonna have to do the fundraising and that on the side. And I think some of the stuff we've already talked about here in the past meetings, I think we've decided that some of us are interested in doing some fundraising with those groups anyway. But I would like to see it change down the road so that you're not submitting anything over a certain amount, which I think should be actually quite a bit lower than even the 10,000 that we suggested. I think 1,000 or maybe 2,000 would be more appropriate, because I think it allows us to give it a little bit to more people. as opposed to funding a whole project.
Agreed. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I think that as a principle, we should all be divvying up the same pot. I don't like the idea of one councillor divvying up $18,000 and another councillor divvying up $23,000 and someone doing the whole thing, because I think it screws up the weighting
Agreed.
of the averages. So I really think that we should all be distributing money from the same pot as a start. And I absolutely agree that we should have a reserve in addition that is available for those unexpected requests that come in through the year.
I did speak last meeting too about, what Argyle does and Modi does, and I believe our CAO said, maybe it's time to just take a peek around about best practices, and maybe a full review of this is somewhere where we need to go. But I love the idea of the 1 cent, the 35,000 where it needs to go, and the 9,000 or so in reserve. So that motion is on the table. If there's any more discussion from anybody, hearing none, all in favor, do so by saying aye. Or raising your hand, I guess. And contrary minded. Motion carries. So that should make it a little easier. 35,000 on the table, and we should all deal with that number, and 9 for the unexpected down the road. I really like the tying that into the tax piece as well, because we can explain that to the public and be responsible for that, and let them know that, some of their taxes is going towards these extra things that we do. So, Councillor Dares?
I just, quite honestly, Deputy Mayor, I want to apologize for sabotaging your meeting so that you're going to probably go way beyond what the mayor's average is.
If we average this in with my last one, that could be okay.
Pam, you're welcome.
Mayor Mood?
Yeah, I just want to thank and commend Councillor Dares on bringing this subject up. I have to say that on top of the laugh that I just wrecked Steve's record, these conversations are just really good, and we need to be able to do this. Like, I just walk away after these conversations and say it was all on the table. I feel good about it. So thanks. And Steve, na.
No, I have to agree. I think it's nice to sit at a table to know that you feel comfortable enough to disagree and to know it'll be respected. And, we turn every stone and we have our conversation, and everyone's opinion is taken in, whether we agree or not. And at the end of it, we come up with a decision that we all agree with. So I think that's what a strong council does. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And I love the way that we do these things. So even if it does ruin my record of short meetings. So I believe that is the last one thing on the agenda besides in camera. And could we have a motion to go in camera, please? Mayor Mood, and seconded by Councillor Lesser. All in favor, do so by raising your hand. Contrary minded.